Hello survivors and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be looking at a new update or a new upcoming update which is 18.1, and as it's titled Faction Region Transfer, Resource Cap Improvements and Community Moderation. And it says, in the coming weeks we are releasing our 18.1 update, which contains a number of important changes to the game, including updates to better address player-to-player harassment in chat and frequently requested changes to region transfer. So first up is region transfer changes, and as it says, faction update. Currently players can use the region transfer feature to move their individual progress from one region to another, but they do not retain their faction when they transfer. This is because the region transfer feature currently requires a player to leave their faction before they transfer. Once they've transferred to a new region, they can then recreate their faction if they want to, obviously, or join another faction. In addition, faction league ranking is lost for the player on their new region if they, of course, recreate a faction. If you join a faction that's already been there, you just gain their status. Getting a faction to a high rank in leagues can take several weeks, months, and losing it upon transferring to a new region is not a positive experience. I know this from personal experience as well. It's not great. With that said, we're updating the region transfer feature to allow faction leaders to move their faction to a different region while maintaining their faction league ranking. So that means if you're in Platinum and you transfer your faction, they'll still be in Platinum. If you're in Diamond, they'll still be in Diamond. If you're someone who's been transferring recently and you're working your way up, and let's say you're in Silver or Gold, you'll just be in Silver and Gold when you transfer again. Basically, whatever you're in, you'll be in when you transfer. While faction transfers allow faction league progress and a few other faction things to transfer with leaders, other players in the faction will not automatically be transferred. Each player can choose to follow by initiating a player transfer, but it is not required. Similar to player transfer cooldowns, factions are placed on a cooldown upon transfer. A faction is unable to transfer again until the cooldown expires. Faction transfer cooldowns are currently set to 10 days. This may be changed in the future. I think that's a bit too short personally, just so we don't have factions just jumping region constantly. It'd be better if that was maybe like once a month. Even that's pretty often. When a faction transfer is initiated, members will automatically receive an inbox message indicating the leader has moved the faction to a specified destination. This should help coordinate with your faction members so nobody is left behind. Obviously, you probably want to organize this before you move as well, but it's good to just know. And as you can see, this is kind of what the image will look like when you're moving your faction. You'll have as a leader, you'll have the choice to move your faction, as it says on the bottom right, or you're just you as your player. Now, if you are the faction leader and you use yours as your player, you can still have your faction transfer as well, even if you make that mistake, because the leader will be then passed on to somebody else, I would assume. So that someone else will take leadership in the faction in your old region, and they will have the opportunity to transfer the faction if you made a mistake there, so don't worry too much. This change should enable factions and faction leaders to more easily make the decision on whether to or not to move regions. Okay, so the next one is chat and anti-harassment update. It is a priority for us to ensure that the road to survival is welcoming and safe environment for all players to spend their time. There's no place in the game for player-to-player harassment of any kind. To that end, we're implementing additional anti-harassment measures in the game to continue to protect players from inappropriate behavior. That's great. That's basically great. I've seen, personally I've never received any of this because I don't use general chat, but I have seen other people receive it based on, you know, gender, sexuality, whatever, race, and you just see it a lot, unfortunately. Kids come on, think they're smart, change region, and insult somebody and then change back to their main region and think that's fine. But if you do that now, obviously before you could potentially get banned, but now it looks like it's going to be a bit better. Upgraded automated chat moderation will be added to global chat, faction chat, leagues chat, inbox messages, and player names to better identify and moderate inappropriate player chat. Temporary account suspensions have been added to the game and will be used more frequently against players displaying inappropriate behavior. Revamp the player blocking and player reporting systems. Players will no longer be able to get around chat blocks by changing their names. That's great. With this revamp, all players' previous block lists have been erased. Players will need to reblock any previously blocked players. I guess as there was a get around with the name change, most of those would have to be constantly reblocked anyway, but this will be a one-time thing. Obviously, the next time you block this person or whoever it is, they will not be able to talk, and you won't be able to see what they say. The chat reporting system has been upgraded to allow for players to provide details for reporting players. That's great. The next bit, this is interesting. World Energy, Materials and Food Cap update. We're making some significant and exciting updates to how the cap limits work for World Energy, Materials and Food. With 18.1, players will now be able to surpass the cap limits when applying World Energy refills and when receiving discrete amounts of materials and or food. World Energy refills will now grant a player the same amount as its max energy capacity even if it surpasses the current cap, which is great. That's how it does work in other games. Example, a player has 30 out of 50 world energy, player uses a world energy refill, world energy now goes to 80 out of 50 instead of the current behavior, which would be 50 out of 50, which is actually great. As you can see in the image, it says there 31 out of 16, bit small image, let me get it up for you. 31 out of 16, and that's great. I would assume it's not going to work the same with raid energy. It's not going to work the same with raid energy because it's not talking about raid here. Notes for world energy cap changes. A world energy refill cannot be used when energy is at or over the max cap, so you can't just continuously use your world energy cans. This cap can also be exceeded when players are rewarded with world energy upon a player level increase. Okay, so that means that if you've got, oh sorry, you're right at the end of your level and you're halfway through your world energy, you level up. Normally it would just fill you up to, say, for me it's like 86 or 87 or something. You would lose potentially like 40 energy, whereas now it will take you to whatever it would be, like 120. You know, you get the full levels energy, which is great. When a player's energy pool goes beyond the cap max, there is no energy regeneration until the player uses sufficient energy to take them back below their max. Any regeneration timers currently in progress are immediately cancelled and no additional energy will be gained. Food and material from certain drops and rewards will be applied in full even if it goes over the current food or material cap. Player has 800 out of 1,000 food. Player receives a food bag of 1,000 food. Player's food goes to 1,800. Basically the same as what we saw with the energy. We've seen this happen before where there was parts of stashes and stuff like this. It sometimes gave you warnings, but it wasn't great, and this is good. This is good to be able to overflow a little bit. Sources eligible to go over the food and material is all tournament milestones and rank rewards, great. Token and coin wheel rewards, again, that's great. All stores, mystery bags, achievements and mission completion rewards, roadmap area completion rewards, faction naming refunds. Now, this doesn't include scavenge camps by the looks of things, and that's where you're going to get a lot of pure food, so it isn't going to be that much, but it could be, you can sometimes get like 250,000 materials, so that's worth noting. So the last little bit of the update is museum update, removing old collections. There are some updates to the My Collections tab of the museum, the section which showcases all previous collections that a player has progressed in. To make room for future collections for upcoming events, older limited time collections will be removed from the My Collections tab of the museum immediately. Additionally, future limited time collections will remove themselves automatically sometime after their related event ends. This time may vary from player to player. These removals will not affect your overall collection score. It's important to note that you will never lose access to an active collection while an event is currently in progress. This is only adjustment for expired events. Basically that means it's going to require some data, and if you think it's only one player, just me or just you, then it's everybody obviously, and it's sort of like where we had weapon limits. Some people could have had 10,000 weapons, and it just can bog things down a little bit. And same with the roadmaps, they expanded how the roadmaps worked in terms of now we can have like 25 or something roadmaps up at the same time. We've got tons up right now with the Maggie and the John Pick Your Path event. So they're just basically, hopefully it's going to make things smoother in the museum. Hopefully this is going to maybe pave the way for the museum collection score to actually mean something in the future, because they do mention it. Because if the museum collection score is not going to reset, at the moment it doesn't really mean anything. So maybe that may change in the future. We'll have to wait and see. But that's just a quick look. It does look pretty interesting, particularly the world energy part of it is great. If you're someone who wants to change your faction to another region, that's also really interesting for you. And I do like the fact that there's going to be some anti-harassment updates. A lot of people do get harassed, unfortunately, and especially people who use global can sometimes just get some people getting a bit aggro. So that's a good update, but I particularly like the world energy update just because, especially when you level up, especially at a lower level, you're kind of learning how it goes, and sometimes you can gain so much energy and you've only maybe used 3 or 4, and sometimes that is even the case. You can't even use enough energy in your level. So I like the update so far. It's nothing major, it's just this is more like small quality of life things, and I think updates like this are great. But that's in this video. Do tell me what you think about this update, maybe even some tweaks and changes that you thought maybe you could make these even better. But like I said, that's in the video. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.